Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod with Faith Agugu with us today. She is founder at Silver Sirens, the CEO at The Healing Process as well. She's a keynote speaker, expert on modern aging, and we're going to talk about the aging process, how to age well, maybe a bit of psychotherapy, a bit of trauma, everything in between. Fashion too would be fun. This podcast is brought to you by podfire.com. That's my podcasting agency. If you want to start, scale, be invited to podcasts like this one, or even find sponsors. Monetizing podcasts is important because most people give up on podcasting because there's no money back end of it all. So I help you monetize your podcasts. And for that, you can go to podfire.com. Faith, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about your businesses.
Hello, hi Charles, lovely to be here. So my name is Faith Agugu. I live in Sydney, Australia, and I've been living here for 32 years. Before that, I lived in the UK and I was born in Nigeria. So I consider myself a global citizen. And I think each one of those places have really formed the woman that I am today, which I think is a very eclectic woman who's quite comfortable in the world. And yeah, so I'm the CEO of the Healing Process, which is my therapeutic practice. And I've been doing the healing process now for just over 5 years. And I graduated from the fashion industry, because before that I had 32 years in the fashion industry. And my last business in the fashion industry was called Raw Fashion Agency, where I was the sales and PR agency for budding fashion designers in Australia. Yeah.
And nowadays, what do you focus your time on? What does a day in the life of Faith look like?
Okay, day in the life of Faith usually looks like getting up at 4:45 in the morning, and then I really love and treasure my morning routine. So I do swim in the ocean every morning, and whether people are amazed, even in the winter, and we do have winter in Australia. So I do my swimming, then I come back, and then I meditate, and then I'll do some journaling. And for me, an ideal day is I've done all of my morning practice. I've done my juices. I'm into my green juices. And then I'm sitting at my desk at 7 a.m. And I will spend the first 3 hours of the day working on Silver Sirens, which is my age positive movement. And then the rest of the day, I see clients. And because of COVID now, I'd see most of so 80% of my clients I see online. So then I see clients until 6 p.m. So that's the day. So kind of a mixture of both my passions.
And were your morning routines always similar, or have they changed throughout the years?
And look, when I was younger, I went through a stage I was kind of like, when I was partying and, drinking, and they weren't as consistent. But for me, meditation has always been a very, very constant in my life. I mean, I think from the age of 14, my mind went through a process of rejecting politics and making a decision to walk a spiritual and not so much religious, but more a spiritual line. So I saw myself really as a seeker, and I was always seeking for something bigger. And I always kind of had the belief that as human beings, there was a lot more to us than all the physical things that we obsess and concentrate on. So I kind of was walking on that journey, and at the same time working in the fashion industry, which is very, people consider fickle and very much outward. So it was this duality going on within me, where working in an industry where I was a model, so I was kind of looked at and praised for my physical looks, but the part of me that I thought was most important was what was going on inside. So I was always kind of traveling that kind of fine line between those two worlds.
Interesting. It's impressive also the routine that you have. I don't often speak to folks with a cool routine like that. The woman I interviewed right before you was also a swimmer. She swam 3 kilometer in butterfly style, which is quite impressive, and did 15K in like a couple of months to raise awareness for cause. I want to speak straight up about ageism because I do consider myself an ageist sometime, which would be the racist version, but with ageism. And the why is that my grandma, she died of Alzheimer, and you know, I want to live forever, basically, and I think I'm on my way there. I'm quite obsessed with my health, and I'm still young, you know, and I don't think I'll die, period. And I think it would be one of the worst deaths to lose my mind, whether it's through dementia or Alzheimer, and just not knowing who everyone is. You know, I want to keep on being a leader, and I think with that comes that defensiveness of mine and that agism, which is like, yeah, if you're old and you're sick, it's kind of your fault, you know. So, but I'd love to speak with you about ageism, because I do also appreciate the wisdom in the elderly. I think they've got a lot of lessons. I also don't give respect to people just because they're old or whatever they look or sound like. Respect is earned. But I'd love to hear your opinion on that. And also, I think that people that well, the elderly should take care of society and should not be taken care of. Anyway, that's my opinion. So what do you have to say on these opinions, and why am I an ageist?
Why you're an ageist? You know, what I hear about you, particularly being an ageist, is that you want to serve and be productive for as long as possible. And I don't think there's absolutely anything wrong with that, you know. But I do think it's a problem when we start to blame people, or make people feel bad because they're not aging so well. And there's aspects of aging well that we have control over. You know, like research shows us that we have control over 80% of how we age well. And that's easier said than done. That sounds good. It sounds like we have control. But we look about some societies around the quality of the foods that are available, the work culture, the expectations of people. It doesn't really create the right sort of environment for most people to age well. And I think to age well, we have to be super intentional, and that means taking control of our diet. Like for me, one of the most important thing is that I exercise, I'm in nature, I eat well, because those are the things that start to make a huge difference to the way our body starts to break down and decay. And you talk about Alzheimer's. So, any mental deterioration, it's about staying really curious. And I think a lot of people they get to a stage where they feel like they've learned everything they need to learn, or, and they think that that's it now. So now there's that sense of letting go, and there's a rapid decline after that. I don't think there's any need for that. I think we accept that every stage of our life offers different challenges and different rewards, and the same as aging. So for me, women after 50, and I work mainly with women, after 50, the women no longer have to focus on their families, they don't have to worry so much about, caregiving, and they start to bring their focus back on themselves. And this is when they can start to really take care of themselves, take care of their physical and mental body, but also about their passions. Because most people before that, they make their career tends to be around making money. It's around, okay, I want to build this life for my family. But after that, they can repurpose and focus more on their passion. What is really, what changes do they want to be in the world, and how do they want to contribute? So to answer your question, I don't think you're an ageist. I think you just want the very best of life for as long as possible. And I'm not one of those people that think I don't want to live forever. I definitely do not want to live forever. I don't think there's any value in that. I think life is a cycle, and I think we struggle because we resist those natural cycles.
Right. I do think though that there's multiple lives in that in one lifetime.
Yes,
For example,
absolutely.
if you do psychics, you'll have multiple deaths and come back on the other side, which is an interesting topic. But yeah, my problem with aging is folks that just don't take care of themselves, and then are a burden to society. And it's like, yeah, maybe you should have thought about that. And my parents sometimes they're like, yeah, if I am a burden, then don't take care of me. Nah, easier said than done, right? Who would leave their parents out there, and they have shitty diets, they don't take care of themselves, they don't do a lot of sport, they're still stressing about stuff, so that's sort of my issue with that. And especially when you become a burden for the state. I'm an ultra libertarian, so I don't believe in being taken care of. Like me, I always take care of myself, whether it's through my past efforts or systems or robots that I'm establishing. So, but talking about aging and longevity and having a nice quality of life, how do you guide? Because I think all your clients are women, right? Like, how do you guide them through successful and happy aging? What challenges does aging bring, and how do you resolve these challenges as a coach?
Yeah. So for around aging, there tends to be three main concerns that people have. And the number one is around the physical changes that are going on. So for a lot of women, once you hit a certain age, the metabolism slows down and changes in a way that if you, whatever amount of exercise you used to do or how you used to exercise no longer works. So women are going through menopause, they've got hormonal changes and their body's changing. And for a lot of women, it's really frightening because they have no control. And I know for me personally, I've always been a model, I've always been super slim. And suddenly I reach an age where things are changing and the things I normally used to do don't work anymore. So it's about understanding the changes that are going on in the body and getting the right help. So now I work specifically with coaches that work with women over 50 because they understand that change. And I saw another coach who was giving me completely wrong exercises because they're really, lots of cardio, fast burning, which increases the cortisol in your body. That stress causes the body to hold on to fat. So it does the opposite to a young body. So just kind of having specific coaches that understand what's going on in our bodies. So the first thing is kind of getting the women educated around what's happening, because most of them are worried about that. And then the second concerns women come to me around is time running out. And there's real panic that, I thought that I would have achieved X, Y, Z by now, and I haven't. And now there's not enough time. And they start to really panic, and there's a lot of anxiety around it. And people can either do one or two things. They can either use that as a motivation for them to get moving in the direction they want to, or they can fall down into depression and kind of go into paralysis. So the ones that go into paralysis, I help them to around mind change, and understanding what's going on for them to get them back on track. So they on track. Because really, the beautiful thing about this age is that you've got so much life experiences. You know the things that work and don't work. So when you start to do a project, there's a lot of shortcuts because you kind of understand the playing field a lot better. So a lot of women find that when they start their business, people in general start their businesses, they can accelerate because they've got that background. And then the third area people worry about, it's about legacy. How will I be remembered? Have I contributed anything useful in life? And is anyone going to remember me? So those are the three main areas. And depending on which one we'll focus on, I will support them around those areas, because if it's a legacy one, well, how do you want to be remembered? Start being intentional about that, So that's, the areas.
What would be your legacy?
What would be my list? Look, I think I'm right in the beginning stage of creating it, and I do believe the Silver Sirens is my legacy because, the fashion industry is absolutely reveres and honors youth. So I had the pleasure of working in the fashion industry at my prime when it was valued. So I was a model. It didn't matter. I could eat everything and still maintain, but that's not the case now. So I aged out of the fashion industry, and I believe that Silver Sirens is my legacy as a 58-year-old woman. It is something that I'm right at the beginning of that, and I believe that there's a lot of work for me to do. I believe I will get better in that role as I age because I will actually be living along with the women that I'm taking along. I'm actually experiencing the aging process in real time with my community, so I really do believe, and there's so many things I want to create around the aging, apart from the community that I've got now, which is an amazing community of women all around the world. I want to relook at how we do things like nursing homes. How do we do things like community living as people age? Can we create communities that are really self-sufficient? Rather than say aging, old people's homes and retirement homes that literally are the waiting room to death. And I want to change all of that. So those are the sort of things that kind of inspire me. And how can we change it? And like what you said, how can we have people be a lot more educated and taking more control and more agency over the process? So it's not just something that happens to them, but they're more intentional.
It's beautiful. Your clients, your packages, like how does it work? Is it a monthly package? And let me see that you have a community as well. You kind of unite your clients together so that they can talk about their experiences. How does it work from an offer and price point standpoint?
Yeah, so when I created Silver Sirens, I didn't think about as a business in the sense of profit-making business model. That was never my intention. So my intention was to create a community because there wasn't one. You know, none of the women I was talking to had a community of women in midlife and above that they could come to. So, you know, this was 6 years ago. I created it purely to cover a need. And then, you know, I actually fund Silver Sirens through my therapy practice. That's what pays for Silver Sirens. So a few years ago, we started to kind of create a membership model. So women pay a very small membership. It's 129 Australian dollars a month, and sorry, a year, not a month, a year. And they can come, they get discounts for our in-person events, and they can attend a whole range of online events every week. So we have a book club that has books specifically around aging. We have coaches that teach around fitness. We have coaches that teach around, say, money or career change, a vast number of things. But every single week, they can come in for an hour, and they've got these amazing facilitators who will help them to enhance their aging process. So that's kind of like the model we've got with Silver Sirens. I've now, so far, our physical events have all been in Sydney, but from next year, we're starting to hold physical events all around the country. And we're just working on those now because from the inception of Silver Sirens, we've had women all over Australia travel to Sydney, and that's not a short trip. So women are dedicated, so we want to go to them to grow our community. And then after that, I want to focus on growing more globally. For the moment, I want to get Australia strong, and then we'll extend out.
What would you recommend, well, in terms of daily habits and schedules and mental models for women that are starting a business in, let's say, their 20s or 30s? And what would you recommend women that have a business post-menopause 50 and 60? What would be these two different realities and habits and insights that you would have for these women?
I think when I was younger, you know, you've got so much energy. You know, you're motivated, you've got that drive, you've got the energy, and you will, you know, I would hustle in a way that I would never hustle now. You know, I would just go for it, you know, whereas and I think that's great. That comes with that. And there's an innocence around the chasing that is appropriate for that time in your life, you know. And I think the difference now it's around the wisdom, because I know the things that didn't work. You know, when I was younger, I throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. That analogy. When you're older, you kind of know what sticks now. So that it's that shortcutting. So I refuse to do anything that causes me stress, because stress is non-negotiable. Not saying there isn't tension times where you've got deadlines, you've got that lovely adrenaline excitement, love that. But anything that causes me to lose way too much sleep, you know, when I had young business in my younger life, it was natural that I couldn't sleep. I was always concerned, always worried. I won't have that now. And I think as you age, there's certain things that are intolerable, and stress is one of them. And I will do absolutely anything to safeguard my state of mind and my equilibrium, which is why my morning routines are non-negotiable. When I was younger, I didn't really need them. I could go out, spend all night out, still get up at 6 or 7 and get on with the day. I can't function in that way. So I think it's about taking care of ourselves in a different way as we age. And you know, and making is that thing of less is more. You know, I don't have to have X amount of followers, which I needed to have when I was younger. Now I can have much quality. You know, Silver Siren doesn't have a huge amount of followers on the scheme of things, but we've got women that are really engaged. And that for me is so much more important at this stage.
Right. And what in terms of challenges and hormones as a woman, like what can a woman do to have a better grasp or control when hormones strike, and yeah, that affects the brain and the thinking? What would be potential solution to stay on track on that level?
Yeah. Look, I'm really grateful that now there's a lot more conversations that are going on about menopause and the workplace. because we know that around 80% of women leave the workforce purely because of menopausal symptoms. And most of them do because they can't talk about it, because there's nothing in the workplace that kind of allows space for them to discuss what's going on. So most women will hide what's going on because there's a lot of stigma, and they feel like if they work knows, the work might think that they're not no longer suitable for the job. So they pretend. And that's such a shame. So what I think in the workplace would be wonderful that these conversations, they are starting to happen. And I'm on some boards with that women can have these conversations so they know what's going on. And it's not a reason to leave work, but they can be supported. And, you know, women will have a wide range of menopausal symptoms. And some of that is around fogginess, which is really, if you're a CEO or a high-level manager in a business and you're having brain fog, that's frightening for women. So if they know what's going on quickly and the work supports them, they can get the right treatments as quickly as possible. For most people, they leave it a little bit too late, whereas we're starting to have a lot more of those conversations. And I think another 10 years, women entering menopause are not going to go through this because the conversation will be had, you know, they'll know what's going on.
Right. Well, Faith, thank you so much for showing up today. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can find me for therapy at thehealingprocess.com.au. And if you're interested in aging positively and well, you can find me at silversirens.org.
I'm Charles Cormier, host for another CEO Wisdom podcast. That was Faith Agogo.